In the desolate expanse of the Nevada desert, where the scorching sun had scorched the earth into a lifeless wasteland, a lone stretch of highway cut through the barren landscape like a jagged scar. This desolate road was notorious among travelers for its emptiness and eerie silence, a place where the wind whispered secrets of long-forgotten tragedies. On one fateful night, as the moon hung low and pale in the sky, a weary traveler named Jack found himself driving down this desolate highway. His car sputtered and coughed, its headlights casting feeble beams into the darkness ahead. Jack's nerves were on edge, his senses alert to the slightest sound or movement in the shadows. As he rounded a bend in the road, Jack's eyes caught sight of two figures standing by the roadside. They were hitchhikers, their faces obscured by the darkness, their forms hunched and ragged. Despite the warning bells ringing in his mind, Jack felt a pang of sympathy for the stranded travelers. He pulled over and rolled down his window. "Need a ride?" he called out, his voice tinged with uncertainty. The hitchhikers stepped forward, their movements slow and deliberate. In the dim glow of his headlights, Jack could see that their faces were gaunt and pale, their eyes hollow and devoid of emotion. Goosebumps prickled his skin as he realized that something was terribly wrong. "We appreciate the offer," one of the hitchhikers spoke, their voice hollow and monotone. "We're heading to the next town over. Mind giving us a lift?" Jack hesitated, a shiver running down his spine. Every instinct screamed at him to drive away, to leave these ominous figures behind in the darkness. But a sense of guilt gnawed at his conscience, and against his better judgment, he unlocked the doors and motioned for the hitchhikers to get in. As they settled into the back seat, an oppressive silence descended upon the car. Jack could feel their eyes boring into him, their presence like a weight upon his soul. He forced a nervous smile and tried to make small talk, but his words fell flat in the suffocating atmosphere of the car. Miles passed in eerie silence, the only sound the faint hum of the engine and the whispering wind outside. Jack stole glances at the rearview mirror, his heart pounding in his chest as he saw the hitchhikers sitting motionless in the back seat, their faces obscured by shadows. Suddenly, one of the hitchhikers spoke, their voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "Turn here," they said, pointing to a narrow dirt road veering off into the darkness. Jack's grip tightened on the steering wheel, his pulse quickening with apprehension. There was something dreadfully wrong about this situation, a primal fear clawing at the edges of his mind. I thought you said you were heading to the next town," Jack stammered, his voice trembling with uncertainty. The hitchhikers remained silent, their gaze fixed on him with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, Jack turned onto the dirt road, the headlights casting long shadows that danced like spectres in the night. The road twisted and turned through the desolate landscape, leading deeper into the heart of darkness. Jack's heart hammered in his chest as he realized he had made a grave mistake, that he had fallen into a trap from which there was no escape. Suddenly, the car jolted to a stop, the engine sputtering and dying with a final gasp. Jack's blood ran cold as he realized they had reached the end of the road, a dead end surrounded by towering cliffs that loomed like silent sentinels in the night. Panic surged through Jack's veins as he turned to face the hitchhikers, his breath coming in ragged gasps. But to his horror, he found the backseat empty, the hitchhikers gone without a trace. A chilling laughter echoed through the darkness, sending shivers down Jack's spine as he realized the true nature of his predicament. He was not alone in the darkness. Something sinister lurked in the shadows, something hungry for his fear. With trembling hands, Jack fumbled for the door handle and stumbled out into the night, his footsteps echoing off the walls of the canyon like a desperate plea for salvation. But in the depths of the Nevada desert, where the winds whispered secrets of long-forgotten tragedies, there was no escape from the horrors that lurked in the darkness. As Jack stumbled through the darkness, his heart racing and his mind clouded with fear, he could feel eyes watching him from the shadows. The laughter continued to echo around him, mocking and taunting him as he searched frantically for a way out. Suddenly, a voice pierced through the darkness, a chilling whisper that sent a shiver down Jack's spine. "Welcome to our domain, traveler," the voice hissed, its tone dripping with malice. "You've stumbled into our realm, where the lost and the damned roam free." Jack's blood ran cold as he realized he was not alone. Figures emerged from the darkness, their forms twisted and contorted, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. They surrounded him, their laughter like the cackling of demons in the night. Desperation clawed at Jack's mind as he backed away from the encroaching horde, his heart pounding in his chest. But with every step he took, the shadows seemed to close in around him, swallowing him whole in their suffocating embrace. In a last-ditch effort to escape, Jack turned and ran, his feet pounding against the rocky ground as he fled into the darkness. But no matter how fast he ran, the shadows pursued him relentlessly, their sinister laughter echoing in his ears like a haunting melody. As Jack's strength waned and his breath came in ragged gasps, he stumbled and fell to his knees, his body trembling with exhaustion and fear. In that moment of despair, he knew that he was doomed, that there was no escape from the horrors that lurked in the depths of the Nevada desert. And as the shadows closed in around him, engulfing him in their icy embrace, Jack's screams were drowned out by the laughter of the hitchhikers, their voices echoing through the darkness for all eternity. For in the desolate expanse of the Nevada desert, where the scorching sun had scorched the earth into a lifeless wasteland, the lost and the damned roamed free, their souls forever trapped in a never-ending nightmare of terror and despair. In the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, where the dense forests whispered secrets of ancient mysteries, a lone figure stood by the roadside, her thumb outstretched in search of a ride. Her name was Emily, a wanderer with no destination and no past, her life a tapestry of shadows and forgotten dreams. As she waited for a passing car, Emily felt a chill creep down her spine, a sensation that sent shivers dancing along her skin. The woods around her seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers grasping at the darkness. But Emily paid no heed to the ominous atmosphere, her mind consumed by thoughts of the road ahead. She had grown accustomed to the loneliness of the open highway, the endless stretch of asphalt, a sanctuary from the demons that haunted her past. Just as despair threatened to consume her, a car appeared on the horizon, its headlights cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope. Emily's heart quickened with anticipation as the car drew near, its engine purring softly in the night. As the car slowed to a stop beside her, Emily approached cautiously, her senses on high alert. Behind the wheel sat a middle-aged man, his eyes weary yet kind, his face etched with lines of experience. "Need a ride, miss?" the man asked, his voice gentle and reassuring. Emily hesitated for a moment, her instincts warring within her, but something in the man's demeanor put her at ease, a sense of familiarity that she couldn't quite place. With a grateful smile, she nodded and climbed into the passenger seat, her heart light with newfound hope. As they drove through the winding mountain roads, Emily and the man exchanged stories and laughter, their conversation flowing effortlessly like a river carving its path through the wilderness. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Emily felt a glimmer of peace wash over her, a fleeting moment of solace amidst the chaos of her existence. But as they neared a secluded stretch of road, deep in the heart of the forest, Emily's sense of unease returned with a vengeance. The shadows seemed to grow darker, the trees closing in around them like silent sentinels guarding some long-forgotten secret. "Is everything all right?" the man asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Emily forced a smile, her voice trembling slightly as she assured him that everything was fine. But deep down, she knew that something was terribly wrong, that they had stumbled into a realm of darkness from which there was no escape. Suddenly the car jolted to a stop, its engine sputtering and dying with a final gasp. Emily's heart raced with panic as she realized they were stranded in the middle of nowhere, the forest looming over them like a spectre in the night. "We must have run out of gas," the man muttered, his voice tinged with frustration. As he stepped out of the car to investigate, Emily's senses screamed at her to flee, to run as far and as fast as she could from the encroaching darkness. But before she could make her escape, a chill wind swept through the forest, carrying with it the faint sound of whispers on the wind. Emily's blood ran cold as she realized they were not alone. Figures emerged from the shadows, their forms twisted and contorted, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. With a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach, Emily knew that she had fallen into a trap, that she was nothing more than a pawn in a game played by forces beyond her comprehension. Desperation clawed at Emily's mind as she backed away from the encroaching horde, her heart pounding in her chest. But no matter how fast she ran, The shadows seemed to close in around her, their icy tendrils wrapping around her like a vice. In a last-ditch effort to escape, Emily turned and fled into the darkness, her footsteps echoing off the trees like a desperate plea for salvation. But in the depths of the Appalachian Mountains, where the dense forests whispered secrets of ancient mysteries, there was no escape from the horrors that lurked in the shadows. And as the darkness consumed her, engulfing her in its suffocating embrace, Emily's screams were drowned out by the laughter of the creatures that dwelled within, their voices echoing through the night for all eternity. For in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, where the dense forests whispered secrets of ancient mysteries, the lost and the damned roamed free, their souls forever trapped in a never-ending nightmare of terror and despair. In the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, where the dense foliage concealed ancient secrets and whispered tales of forgotten folklore, a weary traveller named Ethan found himself driving along a winding mountain road. His car, an old sedan inherited from his grandfather, groaned and rattled with each bump in the road, its headlights cutting through the thick fog that blanketed the forest like a ghostly shroud. As Ethan rounded a sharp bend in the road, his heart sank as he felt the car sputter and lurch forward before coming to an abrupt halt. Panic surged through him as he realized he was stranded in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense forest on all sides. Cursing under his breath, Ethan popped the hood and stepped out into the chilly night air, his breath forming puffs of mist in the darkness. He knew next to nothing about cars, but he was determined to at least try and diagnose the problem. After a few futile attempts to tinker with the engine, Ethan sighed in frustration and slammed the hood shut. Glancing around, he spotted a faint light twinkling through the trees in the distance. With no other options in sight, he decided to follow it, hoping to find someone who could help him. Pushing his way through the dense underbrush, Ethan stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin nestled deep within the forest. The sight sent a shiver down his spine, the eerie glow of the single lamp in the window casting long shadows that danced like spectres in the night. Despite his trepidation, Ethan approached the cabin cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. He knocked tentatively on the door, the sound echoing through the silent woods like a gunshot in the night. To his relief, the door creaked open, revealing a hunched figure standing in the dimly lit interior. The old man peered at Ethan through rheumy eyes, his face weathered and lined with age. "What brings you out here, son?" the old man asked, his voice gruff but not unkind. Ethan explained his predicament, hoping that the old man might have some tools or knowledge to help him fix his car. To his surprise, the old man nodded and motioned for Ethan to follow him inside. The interior of the cabin was dimly lit by a flickering oil lamp, the air heavy with the scent of must and decay. Ethan glanced around nervously, his senses on high alert, as he took in the eclectic assortment of oddities that cluttered the room. As the old man rummaged through a cluttered workbench, Ethan's eyes fell upon a dusty photograph hanging on the wall. It depicted a group of people standing outside the cabin, their faces twisted into grimaces of pain and terror. Before Ethan could inquire about the photograph, the old man handed him a rusty toolbox and motioned for him to follow. Together, they trudged back through the forest towards Ethan's car, the silence broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl in the distance. Back at the car, Ethan set to work with renewed determination, his hands moving deftly as he attempted to diagnose the problem. To his surprise, he managed to identify a loose wire that had come disconnected, causing the engine to stall. As Ethan worked, the old man watched in silence, his eyes gleaming with an intensity that made Ethan uneasy. Sensing his discomfort, Ethan tried to make small talk, but the old man remained aloof, his gaze fixed on the forest beyond. Just as Ethan was about to finish the repairs, a sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing the light of the oil lamp and plunging them into darkness. Panic surged through Ethan as he fumbled for his flashlight, his heart racing with fear. But before he could find the light, a chorus of unearthly screams echoed through the forest, sending shivers down Ethan's spine. The old man's eyes widened with terror as he grabbed Ethan by the arm and pulled him towards the cabin. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, Ethan stumbled after the old man, his mind racing with thoughts of what horrors might await them in the darkness. As they reached the safety of the cabin, Ethan slammed the door shut behind them. the sound reverberating through the silent woods like a death knell. For hours, they huddled together in the dimly lit cabin, listening to the haunting cries of the forest outside. When morning finally dawned, Ethan emerged from the cabin, his heart heavy with dread as he surveyed the wreckage of his car. But as he looked around, he realized that the old man was nowhere to be found, his presence as ephemeral as a ghost in the mist. With a sense of foreboding, Ethan gathered his belongings and set off down the mountain road, vowing never to return to the cursed cabin in the heart of the Appalachian wilderness. For in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, where the dense foliage concealed ancient secrets and whispered tales of forgotten folklore, there were forces at play that mere mortals could not comprehend. And as Ethan drove away, leaving behind the nightmares of that fateful night, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had narrowly escaped something far more sinister than a mere car breakdown in the woods.